Good day. My name is Jim McGilvery, and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like, and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this in future. Today I'd like to do a tune with you. The tune I'd like to do is a classic, Scotland the Brave. I'd like to talk about it with a theme of playing it musically and on the beat. Playing bagpipes is not easy, but playing on the beat is what it's all about. In truth, our music is relatively easy. It's not hard to sing our music on the beat, but our technique makes playing the music much more difficult. And we'll talk a little bit about playing technique on the beat as we go through this tune. I've picked this tune not just because it's a classic, but because I can use it to demonstrate some principles of 4/4 playing that I use in my own playing. So today we'll not only learn something about Scotland the Brave, but we'll learn a few things about 4/4 marches in general. When half the world thinks about bagpipes, they think about Scotland the Brave. It's an iconic tune, and while it's ensconced in our repertoires, it hasn't been around for all that long. The melody was probably being sung in the early 1800s in Scotland, but it was not published until 1922 when it appeared in the music book of Pipe Major Willie Gray and Drum Major John Seaton. So it's a relative newcomer. I'm going to assume here that everyone knows how to play the technique in Scotland the Brave. You know how to play doublings, grips, torluas, D-throws. You should have a good handle on all of this technique before you tackle Scotland the Brave, which is a very technique-heavy tune. If you don't know all of these movements, or if you'd like to improve them, I recommend my technical tutor, Rhythmic Fingerwork, and I'll refer to it here a little bit as well. So, let's begin. That's how I play Scotland the Brave on the practice channel. Now let's talk about the tune. Bar 1. A lot of what I want to teach you today happens in the first line of this tune, and much of it happens in bar 1. If you look at bar 1, the second half of that bar is played like this. Two C doublings on Cs. Ha-da-dum, ha-da-dee. That's the rhythm in that passage. The G grace note in the doubling is played on the beat. Ha-da-dum, ha-da-dee, ha-da-dum, ha-da-dee, like this. What you want to avoid is putting the D grace note on the beat, which skews the music a bit, makes it sound like this. So, G grace note on the beat in a C doubling, in any doubling actually. The second thing I want to point out in this bar is the C's with the doublings, those same two C's, you're going to push them out as long as you can. The fact that they are two notes that are on the beat, those two C's are on the beat, and that they both have doublings on them, tell us that they're quite important to the melody of the tune. And in general, in 4/4 marches, if you have an eighth note with a doubling on it, You want to push that note out as long as you can. So you want that passage to sound like this. And not push the C's out. Right below bar 1 in bar 3 we see a similar passage. Same principle, G grace note on the note, push out the C's. And don't forget that there's an E grace note on the low A's after those C's. One other thing to go over in bar 1, and that is the torlua. I don't want to talk too much about the torlua other than to say if you have trouble with your torluas, put more low G into them. And have a look at rhythmic fingerwork. There's a section on torluas in rhythmic fingerwork. Assuming you can play a reasonable torlua, what I want you to do in this torlua is not only hold the note before the torlua, which we're taught to do as beginners, but I want you to make sure you hold the note after the torlua as well, like this. So the low A after the torlua gets held, and the B 16th note before the C doubling is very short. Some of you will be at a stage where what you need to do next to improve your piping is to be able to play doublings right after short notes, like this. To be able to play a nice clear doubling, yet play a long low A and a B that is so short that it's just barely audible. So that's the first bar of our tune. The second bar. Again, with grips, I won't spend too much time on them, but if your grips aren't clear or your grips don't sound nice and rippling and bubbly, you might want to work on them with the idea of putting more low G into them. And again, grips are well covered in rhythmic fingerwork. What I want to point out most in this bar is one musical issue. Right after the grip, we'll see in bar 2, we have 4 eighth notes, 4 even notes running down from high A. The whole bar sounds like this. What I want to point out here is it's the same principle as I talked about a moment ago about having 2 or more eighth notes in a row. You're always going to give the eighth note that's on the beat, the first eighth note in the pairing, as much as you possibly can. Think of it as being a stronger note. Like that. Try to avoid this. There is a tendency to rush through a group of eighth notes in 4/4 marches, and we'll see another spot where this is liable to happen. That's the first line of the tune. Most of what I wanted to teach you about this tune is in that line. A few more things. Bar 3, we've already talked about the last half of bar 3. The first half of bar 3, we have an F, dotted eighth note, followed by a D 16th note. And this is another place where I want you to make the F as long as you can, the D as short as you can, and still play a good C doubling and stress the C. Try to avoid again, push out the C's. Bar 4 is the trickiest bar in the tune. Your grip, going from low A to B, some people have trouble with, can play all sorts of grips, but have trouble with a grip from low A to B. And the key to that grip is make sure after you're done playing the grip that you lift the low A and the B fingers at the same time. People seem to have trouble doing that consistently. Once you do that, we get to a run of 16th and 32nd notes that is quite challenging if you're an intermediate or advanced beginner player. So bar 4. Sometimes you'll hear pipers play doublings in that little run, especially on the E and the C. And if you're totally comfortable with that run and can play it nice and pointed and musically, feel free to put a doubling on the E and on the C. But I think it's quite lovely with just grace notes on the E and on the C. So the key here in this rundown is a pause on the E and a pause on the C. And the notes between the E and the C and the low A are going to be quite short. So the 32nd note on D and the 32nd note on B are quite short. This is a passage that you would want to take out of the tune and practice on its own because it's much more difficult than the rest of the tune, which is already difficult enough. If you're just playing the tune by itself and hoping a difficult passage like that gets better with just playing the tune, you're probably sadly mistaken. In piping, we often find bars or little passages that are technically complex that we have trouble playing, and we have to take them out and we have to work on them. And this is a good example of that. So that's bar 4. Bars 5 and 6 are repeats. Bar 7 is a repeat, and bar 8, there's our grip from low A to B again, and then the first part ends. And that's fairly pointed. Second part, again, I'm going to play the first line of the second part just to demonstrate how I want even eighth notes played in a tune like this. Avoid the tendency to rush down those groups of eighth notes. Bar 12, little top hand pointing here. You're going to hit the high A strike squarely on the beat, and then you're going to hold the high A and make a short high G down to the F. Try to point those as much as you can. Okay? Bar 13. Now we have 2, 4, 6, 8 notes in one bar, and they're all written the same length. So when I teach pipers, I find they tend to rush this bar. I frequently hear this. Instead of very controlled on the beat, run down, remembering to think of the first note in each group of 2 as being a little stronger. And then bars 14, 15, 16, 17 are repeats. So that's a quick lesson on Scotland the Brave. Again, trying to put G grace notes on doublings on the beats, not rush group of eighth notes, and make sure we push out the first eighth note in any pairing of eighth notes, especially if they have a doubling on them. So, that's Scotland the Brave. Let's hear it on the bagpipe. That's our look at Scotland the Brave, one of the most popular pipe tunes ever written. Scotland the Brave is a traditional tune, meaning that we just don't know who the composer was. But I sure wish I'd written it. If you have any questions that you would like to see addressed in a video, please email me at info@pipetunes.ca. From me, Jim McGilvery at the Pipe Box, good piping.